The 14th of March 1943, North Atlantic, 380 miles southwest of Iceland. Aboard HMS Starling, a British River-class frigate, the sonar operator went pale. Contact bearing 270, range 1,200 yards, fast movement, multiple returns. Commander Frederick Walker moved to the plotting table as markers hit the chart. 3 separate underwater contacts, a wolf pack, hunting together, the very tactic that had sent more than 500 Allied merchant ships to the bottom in just 6 months. His escorts had been running contacts for 11 relentless hours, with nothing to show but empty seas and nearly depleted depth charge racks. Then the surface plot showed something that made no sense. Sir, visual confirmation, bearing 285. Objects in the water, the lookout hesitated. Food scraps, sir. Bread, vegetable peelings, fresh. Walker's hand stopped mid-motion. No submarine would dump galley waste while under pursuit. Procedure was absolute silence, concealment, no trace. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Every U-boat commander knew floating debris meant discovery. It was tactically irrational unless it wasn't waste at all. Walker's gaze shifted from the drifting scraps to the sonar contacts, now motionless. The U-boats had stopped evading. They were sitting just outside depth charge range, waiting for the British ships to chase false echoes, while torpedoes were lined up. What Walker would uncover in the next 40 minutes and what one unconventional cook aboard a submarine thousands of miles away had already demonstrated would transform anti-submarine warfare and reverse the roles of hunter and prey. By March 1943, the Battle of the Atlantic had reached a breaking point. German U-boats were sinking merchant shipping faster than British and American yards could replace it. In the first 3 months alone, 108 Allied ships were lost, 627,000 tons erased. At that pace, Britain faced starvation within 18 months, regardless of events in North Africa or on the Eastern Front. The numbers were unforgiving. Admiral Karl D. Nitz commanded 435 operational U-boats. His Wolfpack doctrine-coordinated attacks on convoys had proven devastating. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. A single convoy might be hit by 8 or 10 submarines from multiple bearings. Overwhelming escorts built to counter lone attackers. Convoys SC-122 and HX-229, just weeks earlier, had lost 20 owned ships in 4 days. The escorts sank exactly 1 U-boat for every submarine destroyed. Germany was sinking 20 Allied vessels. The Type 7 U-boat, backbone of the fleet, was nearly ideal for this war, displacing 770 tons submerged, diving to 750 feet, carrying 14 torpedoes and an 88mm deck gun. It could patrol for 12 weeks without resupply. 17 knots on the surface made it faster than most merchants. Electric motors allowed near-silent pursuit underwater. Its pressure hull and compartmentalized design made it brutally hard to kill. British escort commanders faced an unsolvable problem. Sonar, still known as ASDA-cooled, track a submerged U-boat to about 2,500 yards in perfect conditions, but depth charges had to be dropped almost directly overhead. A U-boat could dive beneath effective kill depth while maneuvering sharply at 7 knots. As the frigate passed overhead at 15 knots, sonar contact vanished, creating a blind zone where the submarine could turn away and escape. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Commander Donald McIntyre, leading escort groups since 1941, summed up the dilemma in his after-action reports. We could detect them, we could pursue them, but killing them required either extraordinary luck or forcing them to surface where our guns could reach. 9 times out of 10, the odds favored the submarine. The frustration wasn't merely tactical, it was deeply personal. Escort crews watched torpedoes strike tankers and freighters, saw men burn in oil-slick flames, hauled survivors from icy waters, then spent hours dropping depth charges on sonar echoes that simply vanished. The U-boat would dive deep, run silent, and wait for the British ships to exhaust their munitions and leave. Intelligence desperately needed patterns. The Admiralty's anti-submarine division analyzed every engagement for weaknesses in German tactics. They knew U-boats had to surface eventually, tow, recharge batteries, receive radio messages, and transit to new patrol zones. But when? Where? How could escort groups predict surfacing schedules when each U-boat commander acted independently? Adding to the frustration, the Allies had broken the German Enigma codes. They could read U-boat communications, chart patrol areas, and route convoys around wolf packs. Yet the moment of tactical combat, the encounter between British destroyers and German submarines, still relied on sonar, depth charges, and luck. For 11 months, escort groups had experimented with new tactics, depth charge patterns, and sonar search methods. Nothing fundamentally altered the mathematics of the hunt. Then, an unexpected variable emerged, not from Admiralty tactical schools or the British Naval Research Laboratory, but from the galley of the USS Barb, an American submarine operating 6,000 miles away in the Pacific. German U-boat commanders had every reason to be confident. In March 1943, they operated with near impunity across the Atlantic. Corvette Captain Reinhard Hartigen, commander of UFA-Archesen, had personally sunk 22 ships totaling more than 10 tons. His assessment, echoed by most U-boat aces, was clear. British escorts are predictable. They follow doctrine rigidly. Once we understand their search patterns, evasion becomes routine. The German Tactical Manual for U-boat Operations, the U-Boot Veranleitung, enforced this. Allied escorts responded to sonar contact by steaming directly toward the detected position, dropping depth charges in diamond or ladder patterns stretching 300 yards. The manual instructed commanders to dive to 17 feet, turn 90 degrees from their original heading, and run silent for 20 minutes. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. By the time the escort circled back for another sweep, the U-boat was a mile away. What the Germans didn't realize was that their own discipline created detectable patterns. Every captain followed similar evasion protocols because they worked dive deep, turn perpendicular, minimize noise, wait for the escorts to leave. It was effective, proven, and drilled at the U-boat school in Danzig. For British escort commanders, the problem wasn't courage or skill, it was a lack of information. Captain Walker had personally directed attacks on 27 sonar contacts over the previous 4 months. Had confirmed kills on exactly 3 U-boats. The other 24 had simply vanished into the Atlantic depths, their commanders executing textbook evasions while Walker's frigate wasted depth charges on empty water. The Admiralty had tried everything. Deeper diving depth charges capable of reaching 500 feet. Head-throwing weapons like the Hedgehog, which launched 24 contact-fused bombs in a circular pattern. Coordinated escort tactics, with one ship holding sonar contact while others attacked from multiple bearings. None of it addressed the fundamental problem. Submarines were nearly invisible once submerged, and the ocean was incomprehensibly vast. A disciplined, brave U-boat commander could evade any number of surface ships simply by going deep and staying silent. British anti-submarine doctrine assumed U-boats acted rationally, that commanders would prioritize survival over aggression once detected. They would break off attacks, dive deep, and escape rather than risk destruction. It made tactical sense. A submarine represented a 30 million Reichmark investment and a crew of 44 highly trained men. No captain would throw that away lightly. But this assumption missed a critical element of submarine warfare, something that wouldn't become clear until an American cook halfway across the world started doing something utterly unexpected. Then came a tactical innovation so simple, so counterintuitive, that intelligence officers took months to accept it was real. It didn't come from a tactical officer or seasoned submarine commander. It came from torpedomans, mate first class Armand Swisser, assigned to galley duty aboard USS Barb as punishment for gambling. Swisser hated cooking, but he paid attention. Barb was hunting Japanese convoys in the Pacific, and the tactical problem mirrored what British escorts faced in the Atlantic. Enemy vessels appeared on sonar. The submarine maneuvered for attack. By the time Captain Eugene Fluckey ordered the strike, the targets had already changed course. Somehow, the enemy was tracking Barb even when it ran silent at periscope depth. Swisser noticed something the officers missed. Every time he dumped food waste overboard through the trash disposal unit, enemy escorts would alter course within 20 minutes, not toward Barb, but away from the submarine's last known position, as if they were reading the debris field and predicting the sub's next move. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. He reported his observation to Fluckey on the 9th of March, 1943. Captain, I think they're tracking our garbage fluffies. First reaction was skepticism. The TDU ejected waste at depth through a pressurized airlock system. Debris sank or dispersed. There was no way surface ships could follow scattered scraps across miles of open ocean. Yet Fluckey was the kind of commander who trusted his crew's instincts. He ordered an experiment. For 3 days, Barb ran mock approaches on American cargo vessels during training exercises south of Pearl Harbor. Swisher dumped garbage at precise intervals, 0600, 1200, and 1800 hours through the TDU while the submarine moved at periscope depth. The results were astonishing. Floating debris created trails visible from aircraft at 5,000 feet. Bread remained buoyant for 40 minutes. Vegetable peelings fanned out, showing the submarine's heading and approximate speed. Most importantly, the debris pattern revealed, when the garbage was dumped, showing whether the submarine was at periscope depth rather than running deep. Flucky grasped the significance immediately. If garbage could reveal a submarine's location, it could also be used to mislead. The USS Barb was a Gato-class fleet submarine, 312 feet long, displacing 2,424 tons submerged, capable of diving to 400 feet. It carried 24 torpedoes and a 5-in deck gun. Its lethality didn't come from its weapons. Alone it was Fluffy's willingness to experiment with unconventional tactics. On the 19th of March, 1943, Barb encountered a 4-ship Japanese convoy 200 miles east of Formosa, escorted by 2 Matsu-class destroyers. Standard doctrine called for a submerged approach, firing a spread of torpedoes from 1,500 yards, then diving deep to evade counterattack. The destroyers, equipped with depth charges, would conduct a systematic search around the attack point. Flucky chose a different approach. At 0530 hours, Barb approached the convoy at periscope depth. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Swisher dumped 40 pounds of food waste through the TDU: potato peelings, bread scraps, coffee grounds, and fish bones. The debris fanned across a quarter-mile of ocean, forming a visible trail. Barb then dove to 300 feet and turned 180, heading directly away from the debris. Within 12 minutes, the Japanese destroyers spotted the floating garbage. Their lookouts reported it immediately, and both escorts moved toward the debris field. Exactly as doctrine dictated, they assumed Barb was traveling along a path extending from the garbage trail. The destroyers dropped Type 95 depth charges set to detonate at 200 and 300 feet. Barb, meanwhile, was 3 miles away, running perpendicular to the expected position. Ato 600, 1200 hours. With both destroyers focused on pounding empty ocean, Flucky brought Barb to periscope depth and positioned the submarine 800 yards off the convoy's port beam. The merchant ships continued on course, confident their escorts were handling the submarine threat. Flucky fired 6 torpedoes in a spread, 2 at the lead freighter, 2 at the tanker in second position, and 2 at the third cargo vessel. The Mark 14 torpedoes, running at 46 knots, covered the distance in 38 seconds. 4 torpedoes struck their targets. The lead freighter, the 7,000-ton Congo Maru, broke in half and sank in 4 minutes. The tanker Kiowa Maru erupted in flames as aviation fuel ignited across the deck. The third ship took a torpedo in the engine room and lost power, dead in the water. The Japanese destroyers realized their error immediately. They abandoned the depth charge pattern and raced back toward the convoy, but Barb had already dived to 350 feet, moving east at 7 knots. Swisher dumped another load of garbage, this time in the opposite direction from Barb's actual heading. The destroyers targeted the floating debris, while Barb slipped away, never coming close enough to a depth charge to rattle the crew. Captain Flucky filed a detailed after-action report describing the tactic, which he called false trail debris deployment. The U.S. Navy's Submarine Force Intelligence Office reviewed it, saw its potential, and sent copies to Allied naval commands. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. British Admiral Ty received it on the 2nd of April, 1943. Commander Walker read it 4 days later. He was skeptical. The tactics seemed too simple, too obvious, but he had been wrong before, and the Battle of the Atlantic was going poorly. Walker ordered his frigates to carry bags of food waste, bread, vegetables, anything that would float for tactical deployment. On the 14th of April, 1943, HMS Starling encountered a wolf pack west of Ireland. Walker decided to test Swisher's innovation in combat. The results would be studied at the Admiralty for the next decade. Walker's implementation was more complex than Flucky's original experiment. British frigates faced multiple submarines operating in coordination, not single targets. The debris had to deceive several U-boat commanders simultaneously while creating openings for counterattack. At 1340 hours on the 14th of April, HMS Starling, Wren, and Woodpecker Walker's escort group held sonar contact on 3 U-boats positioned in a patrol line. The submarines were attempting to ambush convoy HX-234. approaching from the west with 42 merchant ships. Standard tactics called for escorts to attack each contact in sequence, while the convoy altered course to avoid the Wolfpack. Walker chose a different approach. Starling closed on the northernmost contact, later identified as U-191, at 15 knots. Crewmen dumped 60 pounds of bread scraps, potato peelings, and vegetable waste off the port side. The debris spread across half a mile, clearly visible to aircraft overhead. Starling then turned hard to starboard and slowed to 8 knots, running parallel to the original course, but offset by 1,200 yards. U-191's commander, Oberleutnant Sir Helmut Pfeil, tracked the debris through his periscope. War Diary, recovered from German naval archives after the war, recorded his assessment. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Destroyer visible at Liaontimi, food, waste, and water indicates crew preparing for extended pursuit. Enemy expects long chase. Will dive to Ibai Wushimi Eters and wait for the escort to exhaust depth charges before resuming attack position. Fiend carried out exactly what Walker expected. Yufei Joshi descended to Wubai Yunchi and reduced speed to 3 knots, running silent while Starling appeared to pursue the debris field. German doctrine called this maneuver unten dive deep and wait. It had succeeded Bosch times out of Yaodinin, according to British Admiralty analysis, but Walker was not chasing the debris. At Etienne Sembai Wushabasiao hours, Ren maneuvered directly above Yufei Joshi's projected position, calculated from continuous sonar tracking. The U-boat commander believed he was below detection depth. He was mistaken. New sonar equipment, type Yalsi-TB, could track targets down to Tsibai-Yunchi under favorable conditions. Ren launched a full hedgehog attack, Arshasimi order bombs in a circular pattern, each carrying sensual bun of torpex with contact fuses. 7 detonated against Yufei Joshi's pressure hull. The submarine disintegrated at Tsibai-Bashi-Yunchi. All Sishijo crewmen were killed instantly. There was no chance to surface, no opportunity to abandon ship. The remaining 2 U-boats in the Wolfpack heard the explosions. Both commanders assumed the British had deployed a new generation of deep-diving depth charges. They abandoned their attack positions and dove to maximum depth Tsibai Wushiyunchi, where they believed safety lay. This was exactly what Walker anticipated. U-boats at maximum depth could make no more than 4 knots. They were effectively stationary. Their commanders could not observe surface activity through periscopes, could not maneuver aggressively without risking hull failure, and could not surface without exposing themselves to immediate attack. Starling and Woodpecker moved over the estimated positions and executed a coordinated strike known as Operation Observanta New Doctrine. Designed specifically for deep-running submarines, they deployed Mark T depth charges set to detonate at Tsibai-Yunchi, forming a boxed pattern that left little room for escape. Udo Sensi was destroyed at Etienne Tsibai hours. Yufei Shuwu was heavily damaged and forced to surface, where Woodpecker's Su and gun tore into the conning tower. The U-boat sank with Senshaba crew aboard. 6 survivors were recovered. 3 submarines destroyed in Sishasif and Zhongyuts. Convoy HX Lianbai Centris. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Pasaka SSD'd through the patrol zone without losing a single merchant ship. The tactical breakthrough was unmistakable. Debris did more than mislead enemy commanders, it pushed them into predictable reactions that could be exploited. U-boats dove deep to evade what they believed were aggressive surface chases. Once deep, they became vulnerable to coordinated attacks. They could neither observe nor counter. Admiral Tai distributed Walker's report to all escort group commanders by the 22nd of April, 1943. The document, designated Anti-Submarine Warfare Tactical Bulletin 1743, defined debris deployment as false trail creation and outlined specific methods for attacking deep-running submarines. The impact on the Battle of the Atlantic was immediate. In April 1943, Allied escorts sank 15 U-boats. In May, they destroyed 41, the highest monthly total of the war. Admiral Dienitz later called it Black May and temporarily withdrew U-boats from North Atlantic convoy routes. The balance had shifted. For every Allied merchant ship lost, 3 U-boats were destroyed. Armin Swisser never received formal recognition for his innovation. He was a torpedoman assigned to galley duty. Not a tactical officer, but Captain Flucky ensured that Swisser's contribution was noted in official reports. After the war, Fluckey wrote that the most significant tactical innovation aboard Barb had come from an enlisted man who was supposed to be frying eggs, not revolutionizing naval warfare. Commander Walker's career ended tragically. On the 9th of July, 1944, while commanding HMS Starling during anti-submarine operations west of Ireland, Walker collapsed from a cerebral thrombosis caused by exhaustion. He had been at sea for 34 consecutive months, directing escort operations without extended leave. He died that evening at age 48. The Royal Navy buried him at sea with full honors. His tactics had saved an estimated 300 merchant ships and 10,000 Allied sailors. The long-term influence of false trail tactics extended far beyond World War II. Modern submarine warfare doctrine treats deception as a fundamental element. During the Cold War, Soviet submarines deployed sophisticated decoy systems, noisemakers, bubble generators, and metallic chaff to create false sonar signatures. American submarines developed the Mark C-Moss mobile submarine simulator, a torpedo jan-shaped device that mimicked the acoustic signature of a Los Angeles Jan-class submarine. The principle remains unchanged: make the enemy believe you are somewhere you are not. German U-Jan boat commanders never fully adapted to false trail tactics. Post-war interrogations revealed that most continued to assume that floating debris indicated actual submarine positions. Captain Herbert Verrer, who commanded U-Face Schuul and survived the war, wrote in his memoir, "If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. We were trained to hunt convoys, not to question whether food scraps floating in the Atlantic were real or deliberate deception." By the time the Germans realized the British were using garbage to mislead them, they had lost most of their experienced commanders. Naval historians estimate that false trail tactics, combined with improved sonar, long-range aircraft, and Enigma decryption, accounted for approximately 180 U-boat kills between April 1943 and the end of the war. Admiral Dönitz lost a total of 630 submarines during the conflict, and 28.5 of those losses occurred after false trail tactics were adopted by Allied escort groups. The story teaches a critical lesson about military innovation. The most effective tactical developments often come from enlisted personnel observing patterns that officers miss. Swisser was not trained in anti-submarine warfare doctrine. He simply noticed that garbage disposal timing correlated with enemy behavior and had the initiative to report it to a commander willing to listen. Sometimes the most valuable crew member on a warship is not the one with the most medals, but the one who asks why things happened the way they do. Military history often celebrates technological superiority, radar systems, code-breaking computers, and long-range aircraft that turned the tide of the Battle of the Atlantic. These innovations mattered. They saved thousands of lives and millions of tons of shipping, but a cook throwing potato peels overboard mattered just as much. The genius wasn't in the deception itself. Humans have been using false trails since prehistoric hunters learned to disguise their scent. The genius was recognizing that enemy doctrine, tactical discipline, rigid adherence to proven evasion procedures could be turned from a strength into a fatal vulnerability. U-boat commanders followed procedures that had worked hundreds of times. Those same procedures killed them once the British understood the pattern. Innovation doesn't always require billion-dollar research programs or years of development. Sometimes it takes one person noticing something everyone else ignores and one commander willing to test an idea that sounds absurd. Armin Swisser was supposed to be cooking eggs and washing dishes. Instead, he watched debris patterns and asked uncomfortable questions. Commander Walker was supposed to follow established anti-submarine doctrine. Instead, he read a report from the Pacific Theater and decided to experiment with floating garbage, 60 pounds of bread scraps and vegetable peelings. 3 U-boats destroyed in 74 minutes. The mathematics of submarine warfare had been permanently altered. Sometimes the most sophisticated weapon in naval combat isn't technology, it's the willingness to look at trash and see tactical opportunity. If you found this story as fascinating as I did researching it, I'd appreciate it if you like this video and subscribe to the channel. There are dozens more untold stories from World War II that deserve to be remembered, and I'll be bringing you a new one every week. What should we cover next? More submarine warfare, or should we head back to the skies? If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more.